Hey everybody, welcome to Storm Talk. Wave 3 News meteorologist Brian Good here with you on this Tuesday. FYI, I will be out the rest of this week, so there'll be no more blog updates. I'll try to keep some posts out there. As you know, the team's going to be doing updates, so make sure to check out the page for that. And I will chime in every now and then on my social pages as well. I'll be back coming up next Monday. So let's break down how things are going to go for the rest of the week. We still have the system on Thursday. We'll discuss its potential. We'll talk about Easter, and then we'll talk about the end of the month and April Fool's Day, which is going to begin what looks to be a very active pattern. The pattern's already fairly active, but it's going to become even more active and amplified as we head down the road. So let's start with the current setup today. Not bad. The wind and the low humidity are our biggest issues today. We've got mainly clear sky. We've got some high thin cirrus now streaming in from the northwest. But we do have gusts now 32 miles per hour. Current temperature 62. We do have a fire danger, but we're not to the point of a red flag warning, but we're close. So it is worth watching, especially east of 65. The fire danger is a little higher. But the main headline for this week is going to be Thursday, and that is when we are under a marginal risk for severe weather. It's the lowest end of the category. Slight risk you see there at the bottom over Tennessee. And it's marginal, and I completely agree with that, and I'm going to explain why. First off, let's begin with one of our short-range models, the RPM, then we'll get into another one in a second. As we head into overnight tonight, notice the high clouds stream in around the area. In fact, the mid-level clouds begin to increase by sunrise. That should keep us from dropping too low tonight along with that south wind. So I think around 50 or so would be our low. Now tomorrow, the RPM's trying to hint that some of the mid-level clouds will kind of ease off and we'll get more of a stratus, or excuse me, a cirrus type of cloud deck, and that will be hazy sunshine, but that south flow can still get us near 70 for high for Wednesday. Now, in the morning hours, when the mid-level clouds were around, there is a chance there could be a brief rain shower in this area when the mid-level clouds are around. But if this is true and the RPM's right and we begin to dry back out again in the afternoon, that may prevent anything in the afternoon at all for an issue. In fact, it could be a nice afternoon for Wednesday. Then we get into Thursday. This is when I think we'll start to see the dew points begin to rise. Now, we may see a brief downpour or even a thunderstorm early on Thursday morning that will continue through the mid-morning time frame. That is a good indicator that what will happen later on in the day is going to be reduced as far as severity goes, because we're getting showers earlier in the day. And we're getting other model support. Even the NAM is showing signs of this too, of a warning shot rainfall, if you will, in the morning. That would certainly help us out for the afternoon, because by the afternoon we begin to break out in some sun in some parts of the area, especially east of I-65, and that should ignite thunderstorms there, and then we're just cooling down dramatically. And then we talk about the potential for maybe some frost on Friday. The issue there will be how quickly we clear out, and secondly, the wind. Got to have at least lower than 5 miles per hour for a lot of us here in Wave Country to get frost to form. So that potential is there for frost Friday morning, but the wind and the clear sky, the two factors there, and I can't answer that. All right, so let's talk about the NAM. This is the NAM for about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, and you see it's a little more robust than the RPM was. You know, that warning shot, the RPM's betting on it being the main show for us, and then just scattered showers redevelop with a thunderstorm potential mainly for East Kentucky in the afternoon. The NAM model is a little quicker, or a little slower, I should say, on the idea of this band getting to our area, which would allow a little bit of heating and therefore a more organized band of heavy rain and thunderstorms. The wind potential, it is there. We've got winds at 850 showing up here at about 50 knots. That is certainly efficient for producing some damaging winds. But the Cape, the instability, just not quite there. So by looking at this, I agree that with the slight risk being drawn in this particular area where the instability will have a better chance to match all those parameters I just showed you. For Kentucky, it's going to be iffy. And I think if it's going to be Kentucky, it's going to be probably East Kentucky would have a better chance to see that be pushed up to a slight risk if that were to even happen. So marginal fits it perfectly. To add a numerical value to all this, I talked about the SREF model yesterday. These are all the different model runs of the SREF. The black line is the average of them all. That's the one we mainly look at. This is the dew point. 60-degree dew point is right here. That, this time of the year, becomes a more favorable dew point to look at when it comes to severe potential. You can get it at 55, but 60 becomes preferable. In the wintertime, 50 can suffice. But in this case, 60 is going to become more of a target for us as we enter further into the spring season. And the SREF model is taking us just right there, right on the edge. Not over it, but just right there at it. Even the potential for shear. 40 knots is usually my bank cutoff for the potential for damaging winds at 40 knots, and it's showing it, and the shear anyway, showing up here about 40 to 42 or so. Again, right there on the edge. When it comes to instability, just like the NAM and really the GFS, only about 500 units or joules per kilogram, and that's again a little low for spring standard. So everything is marginal, so it fits the category. I'm glad they have that category. A lot of people are against it. Meteorologists don't like it, but I think it fits because it is marginal enough. There could be a severe thunderstorm warning or two if a lot of this is realized, this potential energy is realized. We could get a few warnings for damaging winds. But is it going to be a widespread event? Don't see that happening. And that would be more of a slight risk event to moderate, or in some cases enhanced, depending on how you look at it. So a marginal fits the setup. I'll leave it alone and stop there. All right, so Friday will be a cooler day. Now, as we head into Saturday, right now the model support for Saturday being nice is still there on every model. So Saturday, it looks to be the pick of the holiday weekend. Easter, it becomes the problem because we have this area of low pressure. It's going to be ejecting out of the Rockies. It is going to have a front, kind of an interesting setup here, a little odd, but a front to the north, and we're going to have a strong southerly flow developing on the eastern side of that low. Question is, this is all going to fill in together throughout Easter. How quickly does all that fill in? Because if we see a gap form in the middle, which a lot of the models are still showing, we will stay partly sunny for a while, and that will allow us to get into the 70s in some cases and hold off the rain until most of the Easter services and most of the Easter egg hunts are over with. Right now, the GFS and the Canadian are kind of hinting this idea. The Euro is much slower, does not bring this low pressure really to impact our area until Monday of next week. Leaves Easter completely alone and quite warm. The new run's coming in as I speak. I'll type it in on the blog and update you guys on the written version what it says when it comes in. But the Canadian is trending this way. Yesterday it was slower. Today it's trending more to the GFS look. The Euro has a tendency to be really too slow on waves that eject out of the Rockies. So I think the faster idea may be a little more accurate. But I'm not totally sold on a washout still. I think it's going to be literally a filling in throughout the day kind of event, and it just depends on the speed of that. And so far out, confidence is low. And here it is by the time we into Easter evening. And again, the low pressure and the moisture kind of combined with that front. That's the reason why it's kind of two lines here. You got a front and you got the low that kind of are merging together, and that's that filling in process I was referring to. Interestingly enough, the GFS is showing a little bit of cape still across Kentucky, not over Louisville like it did yesterday, but still across Kentucky. SBC has hinted they may outlook parts of this area under a slight risk when they get closer. I wouldn't rule it out because temperatures could very well rise into the 70s. We would have a little more instability actually to work with compared to Thursday, and we'll be closer to probably the shear as well. So we'll watch it and see how Easter plays out. Don't cancel or adjust your plane still. All right, here is how things look though on by the time we head into the Euro, or excuse me, the Canadian. This is the Canadian look, by the way, for Sunday, Easter Sunday. And again, it shows that filling in process a little quicker, but it still shows the idea of a front to the north and moisture increasing with the low to the south. And then here's where the models diverge after Easter. Once we get into Monday, it shows us clearing out and cooling down for Monday of next week. Then after that, the GFS rapidly warms us back up in the 70s. The Canadian brings in a Clipper-type system that would bring in snow to the Great Lakes and colder weather for us next Tuesday and Wednesday. Then we warm up. So the big differences in those two. I'm going to let the Euro kind of be the deciding factor how those two will play out when I do the 10-day outlook on the app coming up. But we'll see how that plays out. So the model's having a tough time with the features in the upper layers, especially as we head into next week. Speaking of that, here's the 500 millibar on GFS. By the time we head into the last day of the month, April Fool's Day, pretty decent trough moves in. I think that could produce severe weather in parts of the south. How far north that will be, can't tell yet. As far as will it be Tennessee or Kentucky, still yet to be determined. But it's be a pretty significant trough, and then even more so on April the 4th. And usually the GFS gets a little crazy with this stuff far out. But the long-term Euro, which scores pretty good, is hinting at a negative NAO into April, negative AO, and a off-the-chart negative EPO. All that screams cold shots of air coming our way toward the end of the month, and maybe a few into April as well. Now, you got to keep in mind, cold shots, once you get into April, take us down to just to the point of 30s and 40s for highs. Nothing in like lower than that expected. But it still puts us in the potential for snowflake territory. So that's the reason why I'm still going to stand on my ground and say we're not done with snowflakes or even maybe even accumulating snow just yet.